There are more than 100 museums and cultural institutions you can explore when you visit New York City. One of them, recently unveiled, is the Italian American Museum. It is open to the public while still in development, and we got a tour of what visitors can expect. Little Italy in Lower Manhattan was the haven for Italian immigrants in the late 19th century, where waves of Italians sought new life in the United States of America. Today, Little Italy is primarily concentrated along and around Mulberry Street. It remains a vibrant community with a strong cultural identity, and visitors and locals still flock to the area to shop and enjoy the restaurants. Now, in the heart of Little Italy, there's a place that serves to preserve and highlight the history and heritage of Italian Americans. It's the Italian American Museum. Founder and director of the museum, Dr. Joseph Scelsa, says this dream started more than 25 years ago after realizing there was not a museum dedicated to Italian Americans in the United States.
This was the place to be. If you wanted to be someplace that made sense for Italian Americans, this was it. So, we have people now coming from all over the tri-state area to come and visit us. And when you think of New York City, it's a megalopolis. You've got New Jersey, Connecticut, even Rhode Island. People come in, travel in by bus, and they come to visit this area. And where they're going to come and learn about the history is here.
The Italians have been in America. There's been a presence of us in the Americas for 500 years, and it took us until about 2001 to get a museum going, and it didn't open its doors till 2008. So it's very significant historically to have our own space where we can tell our own story in our own time and our own first voice perspective. So to me, it's tremendously important because for too long there's been representations of Italians from other groups through the media that haven't been always correct. And now we can take the wheel and explain things from our point of view and share our authentic stories.
The Italian American Museum is open, but many exhibits and permanent displays are still being developed. When you come here, you'll learn about the history of Italian Americans, starting from the very beginning.
What I want to do, though, for the museum is the whole purpose was not just to have a snapshot, but to be able to tell the whole story of the Italian experience from the very beginnings of America to today. So even before America was started, Italians were coming here. The first Italian was Pietro Cesare Alberti in 1634 with the Dutch East India Company. We have a monument to him that we'll have downstairs on display. But then there were other waves of immigrations that came. The first ones were mostly not immigrants looking for jobs and labor, they were adventurers. After the explorers, the adventurers came, they were the ones who were looking for the opportunities before the Civil War. People think that the Italians came to explore and to conquer. They didn't come for that reason at all. In Verrazzano's case, he was looking for a Northwest Passage, as many of them were. And it wasn't just for spice trade. Many of them, as the case was with Columbus, were looking for a passage in order to be able to get to the Holy Land. Because the Holy Land could not be gotten by going east because of what was the troubles that were happening in the East at that time, which are happening again today in the East. So this is something that's been going on for 2 millennia, and maybe longer. But so they were trying to find a way to get to the Holy Land by also going west. So this was part of the reason they went. This was a big reason for the voyages. But the spice trade, of course, was part of it as well. But a lot of it was to try to find another way to get to Jerusalem. So we have a number of people like that have come that we will showcase as well as some of the founding fathers that actually helped write the Constitution and basically tell the story of how Italians were part of the basic bedrock of America and of this community.
When complete, the museum will take visitors on a journey of the millions of Italian immigrants that came to America. Their stories and struggles will be showcased, including their everyday life.
There'll be another interactive video that will also show you what the street light was on here in Little Italy. Whether you go to the tailor shop or the bread store or the Lattigini store where they sold cheeses, or you go to the Sala Maria where they sold all the different meats and things. you know, and the pork stores, so the people get a sense of this thriving community and what it was really like in its heyday.
The museum will have more than 200 artifacts on display, highlighting food, entertainment, religion, and work life, including this giant vault from the Banca Stable.
Was actually on the corner here, and I saved the vault. And because it's indicative of the little banks that really serviced the immigrants all throughout this period, you know, and they were on one in almost every corner. And they usually were banks that were dedicated to the immigrants that were in that immediate area. So that people would go to the bank that could speak their language, and they would use those facilities. So they also were labor agents, so they would find them jobs, they'd find them housing. So they did all these services out of these little banks. So it's an important story to tell.
Visitors will also be greeted by this life-size sculpture known as Goodnight Maria.
So Maria Paluzzo was a seamstress in the garment industry, and the owner of the factory, she was the best one. He wanted, as a tribute to all the seamstresses, he had the statue made of her, and it's cute because like in the evening when people would leave, they would say "Good night, Maria," and they wave to her. So I thought it'd be like a really nice gesture to put her in our window, so when people leave, they could say "Good night, Maria."
Right now, one of the largest exhibits displayed highlights the Sicilian puppet theaters.
The amazing exhibition is of the Matteo puppets, where I'm standing around right now. These puppets were made by Agrippino Matteo in the 1920s here on Mulberry Street. He had a little theater at 106 Mulberry Street. By day he was an electrician, and all night long he worked as a puppeteer and making these puppets and basically, you know, showing them to the people in the theater that he had on display. He wrote the librettos for them himself in hand. He came from Agrigento on the east coast of Sicily. First immigrated to Argentina, but then very soon came to America in about 1920, and then continued to operate this theater for the next 20 years. These are so unique. The Henson Societies call them the Holy Grail of puppetry in America. That's a quote. So they're incredible. I mean, they're almost life-size. And to manipulate them, to move them, is an art. No one can do it anymore. I mean, it can't be done. These are in the eastern part of Sicily, and that's the style in which they were made. They tell the story of Orlando Furioso. He was a paladin, a knight. And there was a saga, like a soap opera you'd be watching every week. You'd come back and you'd get another episode. So it was very interesting to people. They'd learn about it and they'd learn their history, but they'd also have a little love story as well. Angelica was his love. And why they call him Orlando Furioso is because he was so in love with Angelica that he decided that he would get a love potion that the first person that she would see, first man she would see, she'd fall in love with. Well, of course you know what happened. Somebody else walks along in front of him, a little peasant, and now she falls in love with the peasant, and he goes crazy. So he's Orlando Furioso. And so this is his whole saga and his whole story. There'll be a new episode every week on the trials and tribulations of Orlando, and you'd have these different various characters that would come in and come out of the story as it would go on. It's important to have this institution, because without this, when other institutions are looking for artifacts, they don't know where to go. I mean, if you're looking for Jewish history, you're going to find a lot of them in New York City in particular, which is great. But you didn't have one for Italians before, so now you do. My dream was really to make people understand that, you know, who we are, what we're really all about. When people think of Italian Americans, unfortunately, they don't necessarily think of all these things. But when you have it all in one place, and you start to think, and you start to look at all these accomplishments, you realize they were not what you might have thought we were. And what we are is people who have contributed greatly to this society.
And the museum is open Thursday through Saturday. To learn more and plan a visit, you can go to ItalianAmericanMuseum.org.